U.S.-Burma relations. The United States supports a peaceful, prosperous, and democratic Burma that respects the human rights of all its people. While Burma made some progress in its democratic transition over the past decade, since the February 1 military coup, Burma is facing a grave political, economic, human rights, and humanitarian crisis due to a brutal crackdown by a powerful military that acts with impunity. Elections in 2010 led to a peaceful transition from 60 years of authoritarian rule to a quasi-civilian government headed by former General Thein Sein. Under President Thein Sein, the government of Burma initiated a series of political and economic reforms that resulted in a substantial opening of the long-isolated country. These reforms include the release of hundreds of political prisoners and child soldiers, the signing of a ceasefire agreement with 8 major non-state ethnic armed groups, greater enjoyment of freedom of expression, including by the press, and parliamentary by-elections in 2012 in which pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi and her political party, the National League for Democracy, NLD, won 43 of the 45 contested seats. In historic national elections in 2015, the NLD won a majority of the total seats in the national parliament and in most state and regional parliaments. Despite significant structural and constitutional problems, including the reservation of 25% of parliamentary seats for the military, enough to block any constitutional amendments, the disfranchisement of groups of people who had voted in previous elections, including ethnic Rohingya, most of whom are Muslim, and the disqualification of candidates based on arbitrary application of citizenship and residency requirements, the 2015 elections represented a fundamental step forward in Burma's democratic transition. Following an increase of military violence in northern Rakhine State against Rohingya in 2016 and small-scale attacks by Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, ARSA, insurgents on security forces in August 2017, the Burmese security forces committed horrific atrocities including killings, rapes, and torture against Rohingya as part of a clearance operations, which led more than 740,000 Rohingya to flee northern Rakhine State to Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. In November 2017, then-Secretary Tillerson concluded that the situation in northern Rakhine State constituted ethnic cleansing of Rohingya. Since December 2017, the United States has imposed visa restrictions under Section 7031C of the State Appropriations Act, as well as financial sanctions on Burmese officials in connection with abuses in northern Rakhine State, to include, in December 2019, the designation of Commander-in-Chief Senior General Min Aung Hlaing and his Deputy General Su. On February 1, 2021, Commander-in-Chief Min Aung Hlaing launched a military coup d'état. The military seized power, deposed the democratically elected government, and detained Aung San Suu Kyi and other key leaders of the ruling NLD party. The military took power the day the new parliament, elected in flawed but legitimate elections on November 8, 2020, was scheduled to convene. The military leadership, falsely claiming widespread voter fraud during the elections, immediately declared a military caretaker government and state of emergency. The military regime alleged the coup was legal under the 2008 constitution. Demonstrations and general strikes followed. In response, the regime launched a brutal crackdown against the people of Burma, led by many of the same individuals largely responsible for previous abuses, including atrocities against Rohingya. The military has killed peaceful protesters, they have arrested and detained thousands, and there are disturbing reports of security forces using torture and sexual violence against those in detention. The military has also moved to clamp down on fundamental freedoms and access to information, blocking access to social media sites, including Facebook, which is widely used in the country, and intermittently restricting access to the Internet in an attempt to stop popular protests and prevent reporting on human rights abuses. The military has levied spurious charges against Aung San Suu Kyi, ostensibly to disqualify her from future office, and has detained multiple high-level advisors within the former NLD government in an apparent pressure campaign to discredit Aung San Suu Kyi and her party. In the face of brutal and lethal force used by the regime, the people of Burma have continued to make their voices heard and have disrupted the military's ability to govern through a nationwide civil disobedience movement, CDM. Although some business activity has since resumed, the coup has set off a banking and liquidity crisis that represents a significant threat to the broader economy. The United States has led the international effort to press the military regime to reverse course, refrain from further violence, restore the country's path to democracy, release all those unjustly detained, and hold those responsible for the coup and violence against the people to account. On March 12, 2021, the Department of Homeland Security announced that it was designating Burma for Temporary Protected Status, TPS, for 18 months on the basis of conditions in Burma caused by the coup. TPS enables Burmese nationals, and individuals without nationality who last habitually resided in Burma, currently residing in the United States to file initial applications through U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services for protected status if they meet eligibility requirements. The military government changed the country's name to Myanmar in 1989. The United States government continues to use the name Burma. Bilateral representation. Burma maintains an embassy in the United States at 2300 South Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20008, telephone, 202-332-3344, fax, 202-332-4351.